Arvind, welcome to SpeakEasy with Dheeraj Sinha. So happy to get you here on the show.
Thank you, and thanks for having me, Dheeraj.
Yeah,
Look forward to this exciting conversation.
absolutely. So Arvind, I want to start straight with you on the topic that is bothering a lot of entrepreneurs, business people, MNCs in the country of what really is the TAM, the total addressable market in this country, right? Because over the last decade, we've played with lots of numbers. We've played with a number of 500 million middle class. We've played with a number of 700 million people who are connected to the internet in some way or the other. At the same time, being in active business, we also know that the real number of people who are actually, say, transacting online are perhaps 50 million, 70 million at best, right? So there's a gap between, say, 50, 70 million of people who are transacting to, say, 650 to 700 million who are using things which are free. So I want to understand from you, what do you think is the real number? A, B, how is this going to change in next 3 years, 5 years, 7 years? What's the visibility we have at this end from your perspective?
So, Dheeraj, that's the right question because for anything, any digital economy to succeed, you need a good addressable market, a higher addressable market, right? So, um, let's first of all go and understand the internet users in India.
Yeah.
And internet users in India are number one. In the last 8 years, we've actually gone from about 120 million users to about 800 plus 850 million internet users. Unique, maybe about 700 million, 750 million, somewhere in that range. And what has really changed is that over these last 8 years, and that will get to your addressable market question, is that they have now been empowered with a lot of tools. Mostly internet users we see using it for search or for WhatsApp or for messaging or for very very simple day to day productivity of life issues. But over the course of the last 5 years, and this is where the UPI got launched, for example, we are seeing out of this universe of about 750, 800 million people, 300 million people, give or take,
Yeah.
have actually done a transaction uniquely using UPI. So, if you take the universe of people who have actually transacted using, made a payments transaction using UPI, is about, let's say, 300 million people. Now, that is to me the first market, which is really the out there people who know how to do transactions, whether assisted or directly themselves. They've been able to do a transaction, and a subset of that is the people who have actually bought something or sold something, and that's a subset that all your unicorns of India, all the companies are running after. Now, you and me may peg that number at about 70 million, but again, if you see the numbers coming from the industry itself, and you kind of take the duplicates and everybody out, I would peg that number anywhere from 70 million to about 100 million. So still, it's either one fourth or one third of the total number of people who have actually tasted the fruits of a payments transaction, but have actually not done a buying retailing transaction online, or are not very consistent in doing that in a regular manner, are not sticky doing that. So, um, to me, the way to break down this market is the whole market for, let's say, a gaming industry or a entertainment industry or a messaging industry or a social media industry, maybe 700 million
Yeah.
plus. But the 300 million are the real addressable market in terms of which will add a lot more value to the digital economy from a transactions perspective, of which we are probably just about one fourth of them. So the upside of that is, in the next 4 to 5 years, is to go first, of course, increase the 300 to 500 million, 600 million, but also in the process, go from this 75, 80 million to the 300 million first.
Yeah.
So who we know have actually started
Yeah.
transacting.
No, this is very interesting. And I mean, therefore, what it also means is that this journey from, say, 70, 100 to the even the next 300 million, right? And increasing their frequency needs different kinds of intervention, right? It would not probably happen with the same supply, the same long tail of products and services, may not probably happen with the same platforms as well. And then I wanted to pick your brains on the fashionable new platform, the open network for digital commerce, right? Which not all of us really understand where it's coming from and where it's headed. But would that also play a big role in opening the floodgates of both supply and demand up? Because finally, as I understand, you'll have a platform which is far more inclusive, right? Which is far more inclusive for larger India to get on. So do tell us about what's going on with ONDC, where it is right now, what's the larger vision, and how does India get on to this bandwagon?
So, Dheeraj, again, I'll step back and then give an answer, which
Yeah,
will be, we'll have a discussion on that then. So, what, why are we hitting that 70, 80 million number and not really expanding to 300 million? Is because of many reasons. And one of the reasons is that the cost of new vendors, new discoveries is very high. And there is a to as a consumer, I have very few choices, and I have to download new apps or new systems to do transaction. The success of UPI shows that that you should be able to do any skin. Front end can be anything,
yeah,
and you should be able to transact, and you should be able to make a payment. Taking those learnings forward into ONDC, the Open Network for Digital Commerce, it's not a platform, and I'll explain
yeah,
that. But what are the other issues that are plaguing you today? As if I'm a seller, if I want to sell certain things, whether it's goods, content, services, I am actually going and replicating myself in multiple places. There's a lot of fees that I end up paying, and I also in the process sometimes I don't really trust whether there's lack of trust in the whole system, whether I'm creating value for myself or I'm creating value for the person that
yeah,
I'm really working on. So the value creation and the trust issues are really not in sync with what the whole economy should be doing. So and that's one aspect. The second aspect is it really, because for a small vendors, small merchants, small stakeholders, local people, local retailers, it does not make sometimes financial sense to be able to pay a lot of fees to some of these bigger platforms. And plus they're not available in their own languages, and there is issues of language and other aspects to it. So, what is this whole new concept called ONDC? And first of all, again, as I said, it's not a
yeah,
platform; it's a network, and that's encapsulated in the name. It's an open network for digital commerce. What it does, Dheeraj, is the fact that you and me are talking remotely. We are talking by virtue of a core technology. The core technology is, in this case, TCP/IP, and I'm just going
yeah,
to unjargon myself. It's the internet technology. The internet technology is enabling us to talk to each other. There's video transferring, there is voice transferring, there's data packets transferring, and you may be on XYZ browser. I may be on an XYZ browser. It really doesn't make a difference as long as the technology in between is the same. We are able to transfer packets and information and video, and everything is working fine. Now you apply the same concept, and that is really the way the bank-to-bank transactions happened in UPI. Now we are taking the same concept to ONDC. You can be anybody, any buyer can sell as long as he or she can get discovered to a any seller can sell to any buyer as long as he and she can get discovered. So the seller needs can be on his own system, can come through an aggregator, and a buyer need not be having one particular application, can come through any client, can be a WhatsApp client, a messenger client, application XYZ, anybody, and they can still discover the non application sellers and products and still purchase that. And the transaction will get closed via a third party logistics provider, and payment will happen via UPI. So to put it very simply,
yeah,
it's actually an open network,
yeah,
which is saying that any buyer, any seller, you don't need to be only working on one particular uh, uh, application, and the seller need not be on that particular application. It can be open and it can come from anywhere, and you can still do the transaction and actually provide services and goods. And that's the core concept behind it. And it is disruptive because of the whole nature of the way it is being set up. It is being set up as an open good. It's a digital public good. And as we've seen with the success of UPI, as we've seen with the success of EKYC, as we've seen success of many other host of things that India has done, that the technology is not something that is controlled by one person. So you're not creating value for this ONDC. Everybody else is creating value for themselves. So you are creating value for yourself. The sellers are creating value for themselves. The startups will create value. So it will be an innovation value creation, the ecosystem value creation, rather than one person, one winner takes it all. So
Yeah.
it's fundamentally different from how platforms are built, whereas this is a approach of building a network and expanding it. Now, the biggest thing that this does is targets exactly what your opening question was, Dheeraj. It goes, our target is to go vernacular, to go regional, to go hyper local, and to enable more sellers to come on the platform, so that the buyers can move from 80 million buyers to the 300 million buyers,
Yeah.
first of all. And that's the first target that we have.
Yeah, no, very interesting. I think what you're saying is more an enabling framework rather than a platform. What the question that
Absolutely.
it leads to my mind, Arvind, is that all the current platforms, right, and the leverage that they've built. I mean, I have a lot of friends in the restaurant business, for example, and they all started diverting traffic to their own websites because they said, I need to control my audience, I need to control my data. Why do I want to give it to a Zomato
Absolutely.
or a Swiggy, right? And yet give 40% to them, right? So there's a huge, I mean, Thrive, for example, coming up and so on and so forth. So will this also take away that leverage that some of the closed wall platforms have built, right, with huge kind of margins and data captivity? Will it reorganize the current platforms the way we see it?
I think that's a very fair question, Dheeraj. It will reorganize, definitely. They will need to reorganize in the future. They will need to participate in it. And there will be a leveling and harmonizing of fees and the fee structures. Because as you just pointed out, the core problem of a physical restaurant is that they've set up a cost structure where they cannot part with 30%,
Yeah.
20%, whatever the fees is. And that really hits them. But they, to compete, they have to do that. They have no choice. They can't get discovered otherwise. This will give them an alternate to get discovered, and discovered to an audience that, first of all, the existing audience plus a newer audience. So it's a market expansion that didn't exist before. So because for discovery, you do not no longer need that one app
Yeah.
or two apps that you're talking about, but could come from a simple WhatsApp, can come from a simple app that already exists on their phone. So they are not forced to download a new app, a new system to do a transaction.
Yeah, amazing. Arvind, I want to discuss with you a bit on the India stack, right? Several technologies that we've now managed to develop. I mean, CoWIN, right? DigiLocker, EKYC, and UPI above all, right? I mean, I had some friends come over from Canada, and they were amazed with the way UPI has taken over the country, right? And I remember early in my career when I started, I used to have a client Mastercard, and we used to have 2 million credit cards, all of 2 million credit cards, early 2000,
That's
right?
right.
And today look at how UPI has completely taken the digital transaction system by the storm. So let's discuss a bit on how we've managed this whole India digital stack, A, and B, do you see India as a net exporter now of these public good platforms to the world? Could we be actually be a player in that game? Because as I understand, not too many countries have actually cracked UPI kind of a platform or even a CoWIN kind of a platform.
So, Dheeraj, great questions. Three different aspects to it. Let me first explain. India is the only country in the world which has actually championed digital public goods. And we have done it at population scale.
Yeah,
That's the second advantage. It's not just doing it for a million, 2 million, 5 million people. We are doing it for 1.4 billion Indians. And that is a population scale we do. What is a digital public good? Unlike the other 9 billion user platforms, the other 9 billion user platforms, four come from China, five come from the US. This is the 10th platform in the world, or 10th system in the world, interoperable India stack, which is really crossing a billion users, 1.4 billion users. And at the same time, it's built bottom up, it's not built top down.
Yeah.
And that is a very different thing. It's built with inclusion in mind. It's built with to come to really make everybody participate in the digital economy. To give you one example about UPI, many people don't know that you can still do an UPI transaction on voice.
Hmm.
You can actually call a number and actually do a banking transaction. You can actually do it on a non smartphone, on a candy bar phone, by dialing star 99 hash. So it is built with inclusion in mind so that everybody can participate, number one. Two, it is built with no personal gain, no platform gain in mind, which means the stakeholders benefit. So, who are the stakeholders for all the public goods, whether it's India Stack or and UPI is part of that, or CoWIN that you're talking about? The government benefits, the private sector benefits, the startups benefit, the society benefits, and that is the whole game changer. The ecosystem play is not by one person. One person doesn't become bigger.
Yeah.
It's everybody. Everybody gains in this. So to give you an example, the government uses the India stack to do what is called direct benefits transfers. The government has saved, give or take, upwards of $30 billion just doing transfers directly into people's account.
Wow.
And that and and finding duplicates and fakes and all the ineligibilities and everything else. The startup ecosystem on fintech side using India stack has a valuation of upwards of $350 billion. The society at large gets money directly into the bank account. So if I'm remitting money from Kerala to Bihar or Bihar to Assam, I don't pay a broker in
Yeah.
between. I don't pay that 8-10% brokerage fee to a middleman for adding zero value. It goes from money, account A to account B, and they can go and withdraw it or use it the way they want to do it. Everybody is getting their value added. A old person gets their pension not by going to and you would empathize with me when I say this. When that movie scene from Munna Bhai, when
Yeah.
people used to go to a pension office, strip off the clothes, and say, "Please sign my pension file because I can get my pension on time." And they had to do this proof of life every 6 to 12 months. Today they do it with a thumb impression. So societal value, and I get my money in my bank account, done. So there is, this is more governance, but less government involvement in that. So this is what it is enabling for everybody. Now this model, and we saw, and you just talked about it. You talked about UPI, but let me just talk about something else. COVID.
Yeah.
Today, you can make a Coven reservation on a WhatsApp or a Paytm or tons of apps. You can see your vaccine certificate embedded into the that gig economy worker that is coming to service you in your house using urban company or a taxi driver or anybody else. You can click and you can see the Coven certificate, vaccinated, yes, no, their status. Coven is the world's largest open health platform today,
Hmm.
and people are amazed that I lose my certificate. I get it in 2 seconds on sending a WhatsApp number. You just say certificate to a WhatsApp account and you get your certificate bang there. You can make an appointment there. Now now this is what has enabled us to do 2 billion vaccinations, 2.06 billion vaccinations as of today. Now it's more than 5 times the population of continents.
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make is we have done things at population scale which have impacted every member of the society. Now, of course, this technology is trustworthy because it's coming with a lot of, the amount of debate we have had on Aadhaar and UPI in the Parliament to Supreme Court makes us a very trustworthy and a democratic system. A lot of criticism goes into solving problems, right? I mean, it's good positive criticism, and this critical responses or criticism helps our technology become better. It becomes more privacy by design. So what this has done is, of course, and then as you rightly said, is there a need across the world? Yes, there are many countries asking for India's help
Yeah.
in implementing Aadhaar. There are many countries, which is the identity system. There are many countries actually working with India on the payment system. At least there are about 20 plus countries working with India on the payment
Wow.
system. both for their internal needs as well as doing cross-border payments with India.
Hmm.
We've just heard that now you can accept UPI payments in Singapore, in Bhutan, in the Middle East, and so forth and so on. So there, it will be interoperable across regions, and that's what we want to do, slowly and slowly. And COVID is already implemented along with the vaccine diplomacy that we did, the Vaccine Maitri program, where we exported vaccines and gave vaccines away, as part of our global pledge. But also along with that, many people should, your readers, your viewers should appreciate that India has actually given technology. The COVID platform has been open sourced and given to at least 27, 28 countries, not for just their COVID vaccines, but also as a health platform going forward for all their vaccination schedules. That is what India is repurposing COVID also for.
Yeah.
Our vaccination platform is not going to just get limited to vaccines, the COVID vaccines, but any vaccine throughout your lifetime. So, and that's another beauty of technology, right? You start with X and you can add
Yeah.
Y and Z to keep solving bigger problems. So,
Yeah. No. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, so there is and geopolitically. So I want to bring this angle, whether your listeners will be interested in the geopolitically today. There is a complete shift, if you may call it, in the trust in technology, which was coming primarily either from the west coast of the US or coming from the Shenzhen Valley of China. Today, geopolitically, apart from the other geopolitical gains that India has had, people trust technology coming from India,
Hmm.
and that itself adds to this public goods approach, that technology emanating from India, from more democratic, with more democratic norms and governance, will is something that is more trustworthy.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And continue on the geopolitical thread, Arvind, right? I mean, in some ways, I mean, I always worried that somehow we miss the manufacturing, you know, revolution, right? I mean, while India caught on to the service revolution through, in last 10 years through KPOs and IT and all of that, but somewhere in manufacturing, I mean, China obviously stole the lead, right? And now obviously things are changing, and there are geopolitical issues around that. In our last conversation, you mentioned that there's a huge focus on India maybe coming back and becoming the manufacturing hub, and that to my mind also relates back to the consumer economy question, because if there's more employment, if there is more money going in the pockets of average Indian people, that will also in that sense expand the market and deliver the demographic dividend that we've been talking about. So it's all in that sense pretty related, right? So what's happening on that front? I mean, we heard about UP talking about saying we want to be 3 trillion, play that 3 trillion economy game through manufacturing. Uh, you know, there's gift sitting coming up in Ahmedabad. What's going on in that front? If you could talk to us about that.
So Dheeraj, again, all interrelated questions, right? I mean, if the bottom of the pyramid or the aspirational class increases, then your market
Yeah,
size
yeah,
automatically goes up. And what is the silent revolution happening is what you've talked about. With the massive skilling initiatives, the massive what is called the product linked incentive, the PLI scheme that the government has done, the amount of manufacturing, and of course, the COVID shocks accelerated all of that, right?
yeah,
Is that we are seeing a new new sectors which were erstwhile not, it was not the easiest and to manufacture without the help of parts, a lot of parts coming from China. Today, a lot of these value chains are realigning themselves. India is gaining a lot of that, and the PLI scheme is making sure that we are cost competitive, and it is making sure that there is an incentive for industry to produce made in India products, as the Prime Minister has envisioned. So, what are the areas that we are seeing production happening in digital, smartphones, set top boxes, smart TVs, textiles, white goods. The amount of white goods being made in India is just gone through the
mm,
roof. And now we are going to see the new semiconductor mission come in, and that is going to be also, there's going to be a lot of push on semiconductors made in India. It's a slightly longer term program, but you will see that. You're seeing a big revolution in energy and EVs happening in India. So I think with the right policies, the right schemes, and the right skills, we have been able to come very fast up to speed. We have not been able to catch up. No, nobody can say that we've been able to catch up with China, and we'll be able to do that so fast. But we can come up to speed from a state where we were very dependent on China. There are certain sectors that we are not so dependent any longer on China, and I think that the number of those sectors need to keep increasing. But you have to remember, Dheeraj, this is not like a 2 year, 5 year
Yeah,
program. These are generational
yeah,
shifts, and the only thing is what used to take 30 years to happen in the 80s and 90s probably will now happen in 10 to 12
yeah.
years. The time will shrink because of globalization and digitization, but still there is it's going to be it's a long drawn process. We have to keep being consistent with it and keep pushing the policy on it. But what it is doing in the meanwhile is there is the PMI indexes, the what you see, the manufacturing index in India is holding stable and it's going up only. So I think there is positive news all around when it comes to local manufacturing and manufacturing goods, which will enable the digital economy as we go along. And as we see the 5G rollouts happening, one angle on 5G is that India has kept um, mostly Chinese tech out of it, and that I think will have a bigger impact both on Make in India as well as make keeping our networks a lot more secure. So as we go ahead, you'll see all of this getting deleted from our networks also. So
Yeah.
um,
Interesting. I mean, unlike the service economy, which is slightly relatively low gestation, manufacturing obviously is slightly more gestation. So I hear you when you say that the impact will be long term, but just that effort is happening. I feel for the large Indian middle class and bottom of the pyramid, that kind of entails huge income possibilities in times to come. I want to probe a bit on the health piece, Arvind. And just an observer. I mean, and I come from Bihar, and I've seen people sell off land when they get hospitalized, right? And the concept of insurance, etc., doesn't really exist. I mean, most insurance products in India have single digit penetration. Right, so the bulk of India is being bereft of any cushioning when it comes to health access, etc., both in terms of financing of it and in some sense even the supply side of it. Now, is there a way, I mean, if we are making such great strides on technology and public policies, how do we solve for the burgeoning health problem in the country, right? And it's obviously hugely layered. I mean, there are layers of chronic disease of how many million Indians will be in the fold of diabetes and heart and so on and so forth. But beyond the just accessibility to basic health infrastructure financing without having to go broke for the bulk of middle India and the lower India, right? Is there a solve in technology plus public policy combined, and are we going to see some big strides there?
Dheeraj, as you have shared your story, I think it's amazing to understand this. And sometimes we sitting in Delhi or Mumbai don't appreciate what's going on in the hinterland. Uh, 4 years ago, when the Ayushman Bharat program was
Yeah,
launched, Ayushman Bharat is addressing part of that, and I'll come to. But the problem that you stated is real. What we realized was that people go into debt and go back into poverty sometimes
yeah,
and go into debt because of there were three big reasons, and the third one was what surprised me. And was number one was that they go back into a lot of debt is of course because of expenses around weddings.
yeah.
And that is of course the that is also has a social impact to it. And you and me know what the reality of that is. The second biggest issue is actually health,
Yeah,
and the third one is now surprisingly good is education. People
yeah,
are actually taking loans to get their kids educated now, and that's a very positive thing. So that's what I'm saying. There's a positive thing that is happening, which is around education, and which continues to do that. And and if that number becomes higher, we'll be very happy, and that's a good positive sign. But the second one, which is health, which is disease. has and suddenly one person gets extremely sick, and you end up depleting your life savings, and end up taking loans, and that has actually been a cause of a lot of worries that all of us have had. um, and to address that was this whole Ayushman Bharat scheme. The Ayushman Bharat scheme says that for your health needs as a family, 5 lakh rupees per year is your insurance cover. And that insurance cover is covered by the government. You don't pay anything, it's just covered by the government. And that is applicable to every single citizen of India. 80 crore, 800 million citizens tend to benefit from the same. But what the intention was not to just provide insurance cover, it's the world's largest insurance scheme, but also because at the back end, it encouraged the private sector to come forward and say, this is, I'm going to create a rate chart for you. And this rate chart is available to you to avail if you become empaneled with Ayushman Bharat. And that, the money comes not from the citizens, but comes from the government. And once they avail of a service, a medical provision service, an operation, or whatever else that they need you to do, there's a pre-contracted rate, and that rate gets transferred to you directly. And this is all happening through the backbone of the India stack that we talked about. So suddenly we are seeing, and this is something that I've talked very extensively during the rollout of the Ayushman Bharat, that more and more private sector is going to enter it. While there is going to be increase in public sector capacity of building more hospitals, more building more healthcare, and it's coming back into public discourse, and that's a very welcome sign. We do know that we always need a more private participation also as we go along. Currently, if you see the numbers, it's heavily dependent on public infrastructure for healthcare. So Ayushman Bharat is slowly shifting that to get more private participants into the healthcare servicing, and to both primary and tertiary healthcare, so that and that's where the private sector needs, they need surety that they will get their money, they'll get the they will have least of the problems in collection. So and that is helping us build more infrastructure. We've seen a lot of chains expand to tier 2, tier 3
Mm.
towns, and service this category. And that is, I think, again, it's a long term impact. But India's answer to the world's to India's own healthcare issues is by launching the world's biggest healthcare insurance, and not only just insurance, but actually a comprehensive program for providing you healthcare coverage and medical facilities, was Ayushman Bharat, and it's doing very, very well. Again, totally digital, totally portable, with all your health records online, and available anywhere in the country.
Yeah,
So that's again a very less talked about
yeah,
thing. Many people don't know, even
yeah,
because UPI, even the affluent class uses it
yeah,
today. The Ayushman Bharat, the amount of impact it is happening, it's making in the just above poverty line and the below poverty line, is there to be seen in the villages and where the real India lives.
yeah. Do you Arvind, also see the role for telemedicine, for example? I mean, just opening the supply side of medical, in opening it for the, or do you think we are
It's all
far away?
integrated.
It's all integrated. Yeah,
It's all integrated into
sure,
this.
sure.
The Ayushman Bharat project is not just about uh, operative care.
Yeah,
It's also about telemedicine, preventive care.
yeah,
E-Sanjeevani is the system that is set
yeah,
up, and again, COVID shocks did accelerate this. But today, we were doing um, 500,000 teleconsultations a month. Today we are doing, like, that number is more than 8
wow,
million
yeah,
teleconsultations. So it is, the supply side has been more democratized. There has been more, and that is what the benefit of technology is. I mean, the same doctors, certain things, you and me were doing telemedicine during COVID times, so
yeah,
everybody can do it.
yeah,
It's something that should not prevent people from talking to a doctor.
yeah.
And that is something that the platforms and the technology and the policies are ensuring.
Yeah. I want to get back to the conversation around entrepreneurship and startups, Arvind, right? And obviously, there's a very modern, Sequoia funded world of startups and entrepreneurship, right? Of valuations. But there's the other idea of Atmanirbhar Bharat, the idea of, everyday entrepreneur and whether they are getting funding or not. So there are two parts to the startup or entrepreneur game, right? One is the top end, building unicorns out of India. The second is, getting more and more Indians to stand up on their own feet and not wait for a government job or not wait for a job in railway or and so on and so forth, right? Uh, but between both, right, with the way the economy is headed and with the way the rates are looking and so on and so forth, there is obviously crunch on liquidity. Now, whether we call it, crunch on liquidity or whether we call it funding winter, right, depends on which segment are we talking to. What's your sense on both of these? So I have two questions. One is obviously, what's the cloud around funding winter? Is it going to be severe? Are we going to Should we brace up for some big upsets to happen in categories like edtech, food, etc., or do you think we'll sail out with little damage in that sense? And second is, how do we take the idea of startups and entrepreneurship to larger India, right? I mean, already things like Shark Tank coming on Sony TVs ignited a lot of people to go on their own. So it is becoming interesting and respectable. But how do we catalyze that? Are there is there a thinking in that aspect?
So, Dheeraj, let's first start with the one big thing. Anytime the government will advertise 100,000 jobs, 10 million people will apply to it. That is not going to change. This is India. This is the scale of India, and that is the diversity of India. That is will keep happening. So people will put their name in all the hats possible. While they may be thinking of a startup idea, while they may be writing the civil services exams, they may so when people measure, and this is such a primitive way of measuring. Some, for example, unemployment is that, oh, there were 100,000 jobs and for that 10 million people
Mm,
applied. So this is showing you a trend. This A government job in India is still a very desired job. It's more stable, as you, if you may call it. But along with that, what you have to realize is the reality of India, that in the last, again, 6 to 7 years, we've seen 65,000 startups which are creating millions of jobs by themselves. Some startups in the fintech sector itself have created 2 to million jobs
mm,
as a fintech sector by itself. Manufacturing is creating jobs, and I think these are startups that are adding a lot of value, not only economic value but also, as I said, societal value. So that will keep going on. But coming to the question of funding, now, two things. India is still one of the top five economies from a growth perspective. We are still going to keep growing at 8%,
yeah.
give or take a few, 8% plus or minus, and that's coming at a back of where everybody else is either below 5%, 4%, or shrinking. So, recently there was a study that was published that India has 0% probability of going into a recession, and this is very healthy science. Now let's look at with the lens of not you and me sitting in India, but I'm sitting in the US and I have to deploy capital.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm deploying a lot of capital in a lot of emerging markets. But where do I see a standout star coming? That is India. So there will be their domestic needs may suddenly say that, you preserve capital. So instead of your bucket to be spent in total emerging market bucket is instead of 20 billion is now reduced to 5 billion, and take this 5 billion and play with that. So if initially the of the 10 billion, India was getting a billion, $2 billion per year of funding from this particular fund, the 5 billion may make it, still the 10%, 20% may come. So it may not increase, but it'll decrease a little bit, or stay somewhere there. But people are still, if I have to produce returns for my investors, they are continuing to bet on India.
Mm,
We are not going to see a lot of bets going away from India.
mm,
Of course, the excess capital globally is going away. There is no excess capital. There is, I mean, the excess capital, the capital, the liquidity excess that we had in the whole economy globally, that I think is is taken away, and because of that, economies will get hurt, or people who are, just, or even funds which are just dependent on that will squeeze a little bit. I see some impact of that in India, and it's a good impact because that will build discipline into some of the startups that they need to not operate only on free money, the double quotes free money, but also operate on real money and make profits and operate from operating profits and show operating profits. So that will happen. But having said this, India's startup ecosystem really is not dependent on a few international funds only, and that's the healthy side. We have a domestic fund, a very strong domestic HNI and domestic institutional money. We have almost 100 funds plus which are funded by the fund of funds from the government of India.
Yeah.
So there are about 100, maybe even more actually, at least 100 funds which have taken money, the government from the government grants, and actually expanded the market 5 to 7x, levered that up. So there is a lot of money that is domestically also available for Series A, pre-Series A, Series B to C. So it's not, and that's a good mix. Like a good savvy investor will always have a good mix of goods in their basket. The amount of money that is available in India is a good mix of all of them. It's not just foreign capital or capital just coming from the US or
Mm.
Japan. It's a mix of capital coming from Singapore, US, UK, Europe, and domestic. So I think that's a very healthy mix in India. The second thing that we are seeing from a capital perspective is, if the domestic institutions and domestic HNIs were only investing 5% of India's startup capital needs, that number has gone up to 25-30%.
Wow.
The HNIs, the already successful in entrepreneurs, they are participating very heavily, and that is what, having lived and worked in Silicon Valley, I can tell you that is the second
Mm.
layer, both which is coming with money and mentorship, is really spurring the growth in India. So when you have a successful Sachin Bansal,
Yeah.
not only does he take his money and build a second company, but he also invests in maybe 10 other,
Yeah.
20 other companies, and that spurs the innovation, right? So I think that money is flowing back into the system, and that money flowing back into the system is helping India sustain its growth story in terms of unicorns and in terms of startups being successful. The other data point with startups is very, very important, which I think I mentioned. Almost 45 to 50% of startups are coming from tier 2, tier 3 towns.
Wow. Yeah.
And out of the 65, 70,000 startups that are registered with the country, you're seeing a lot of small startups, very innovative startups coming from very small towns. And that is to me a very, very big positive data point. It's not no longer limited only in Bangalore's and Delhi's and the Mumbai's of the world. It's actually going cross country, and I think that's the feeling that I get when I go and meet small young innovators, where they're talking about, this is my startup idea, I want to do this is my startup idea. So no longer people are only aspiring to work for large companies, but they're thinking of their ideas either separately or parallelly, or moonlighting their ideas into pitching it left, right, and center. So um, I think I covered both the things
Yeah.
that you asked for,
Yeah.
Dheeraj.
No,
I
you
don't know
did.
whether
You did. So,
I.
you are seeing capital flow to smaller towns, Patna, Pilibhit, Gonda. You're seeing funding happening there as well. If the startup economy is being kindled in those places.
States are participate. The state, Dheeraj, even the states today are setting up special directed startup funds,
Yeah.
which are helping the startups locally. I know this. Northeast has a fund. Uttar Pradesh government has a fund which actually funds other funds which are directed to only invest in Uttar Pradesh-based startups, not just having a market in Uttar Pradesh, but having a presence and a office in Uttar Pradesh beyond
Nice.
Noida. So there is a sense in every state, and that's a great part about digital and startup. It's a very healthy competition.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to make sure that their local MSMEs, their local startups, their local innovators are succeeding. And I think this is where Team India is really working very strongly as
Yeah.
one team.
Yeah. I want to pick your brains on crypto, right? So obviously there's a lot happening there, right? I mean, we're seeing the headlines every day, right? The question is, does I mean, the whole idea of crypto is not being regulated, but does this need regulation, right? Does the unregulated nature of crypto need regulation?
So the question is, will regulation enable certainty,
Yeah,
right? Will regulation enable certainty both for the consumers as
yeah,
well as the innovators
yeah,
on crypto? And I think it will. The regulation today, there is a lot of gray area, there's a lot of uncertainty. There is a And regulation does not mean just saying yes you can do this or you cannot do that. It can be a lot of policies, frameworks, and I think what is allowed should be clear, what is not allowed should be clear, and whatever is allowed, if that comes under certain limits and under certain policies, makes it very clear for people. Today as a consumer in the crypto market, I really don't know what I'm buying into, what is being sold, whether this exchange or this company will be valid. As a regulator, I don't know whether the users are KYC, whether it is being used for money laundering. And we're seeing a lot of bad governance in certain exchanges, and we've seen some lot of law enforcement probes into certain things where money was, where these exchanges
yeah,
were used to launder money outside India. So there is I think we do need regulation, and this regulation is with crypto is very interesting. Is regulation cannot be just country specific sometimes.
mhm,
While countries will have to take the lead and do regulation, but there has to be harmonization of this regulation or common basic principles across the world, because crypto is a product not only, I mean, like the internet, it's a product that is global, right? I mean,
yeah,
you technically have a currency issued or a cryptocurrency or a crypto asset issued somewhere which you don't even know,
yeah,
and maybe offered in India. But really, I mean, if global regulators don't come together and say this is the verified product or not, or this is the constraints that this will work under, one country enforcing that will only enforce a ban or could enforce a ban. And but there has to be a global consensus on this, a global harmonization on this. Coming to India, we are actually very clear that we crypto is, so far what I'm hearing from the policy side is that, and this is my interpretation of the same, that we are very clear that this is not a currency. We don't need crypto as a currency to transact. We have UPI. Why would I do transactions using crypto? Many countries, many societies, many nations may choose to do that in the absence of them having a transactional system like UPI. We have UPI, and in the presence of UPI, at which is such a low cost, high volume transactions it supports. Why would I do a crypto based transaction as an asset category? That's where the
yeah.
debate is in India,
The
whether
trading
it can
value
be an
of
asset
crypto, yeah,
category. Yeah, so that is a second debate. But as a transactional currency, I don't see merit in having crypto as a transactional currency in India, any currency. And the third thing, India is launching its own
yeah,
digital currency as a national digital currency. So um, I think um, I think the future is should be much more regulated within frameworks, and that will give clarity both to the industry and to the consumers. And you saw, and you come from an industry also, Dheeraj. You work in an industry where you saw the crypto exchanges primarily spending upwards of 500 $600 million,
yeah,
which they had just received in fresh
yeah,
funding in,
absolutely.
in consumer acquisition while advertising. There was not a cricket game that you could open that you would not see
Yeah,
a crypto ad. Suddenly they've all disappeared, right? They've all gone. They've burnt a lot of money and they've gone. But who's left at bay is the consumer. They don't know whether their money that they had invested is safe or not.
yeah,
And I think regulation will bring that clarity.
yeah, yeah. No, very, very clear, very interesting. And you know the metaverse conversation right now, there are people on both sides of that conversation. Some are saying that we are already in metaverse, right? I mean, look at all the gaming content, it is metaverse like, and metaverse is not one thing, it is many things coming together. So in some ways there's one view which says that we're already in metaverse. In some way the other view says that all this is just conversation. Any real substantive metaverse initiative is at least 5 years away uh, from where we sit. What do you see here?
I think it all depends on who you're asking this question to.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're asking this to me, I think in India we are some there's a very small audience. Again, metaverse and all, if you look at it, it's all top down, right?
Yeah,
Very small audience on the top is using metaverse. And that's okay. That's an audience for some people, and they're happy with leveraging that audience, creating value for that audience. But to me, metaverse is a few years away from an Indian context, because we want to have very high speed connectivity using 5G, which is going to be rolled out second half of this year and early next year. You want to have better devices, much lower cost, and all sorts of devices, just not a cell phone, but wearables and things like that. So the true potential of the fourth industrial revolution, combined with high speed connectivity and the technologies of metaverse, will really see the fruit probably next year, late next year, early 2024. But in certain sectors we are there. I mean, gaming, of course,
yeah,
as you said, we are there. And but again, to make it reach a very very sizable population, in the true metaverse sense. See, when you say gaming has 200 million users or 300 million users in India, they could be playing a
yeah,
small game, and gaming companies will include them into the definition of users. But when metaverse, they need much faster equipment, much cheaper equipment, and much higher connectivity, much faster connectivity. So I think that growth is happening very interestingly, because you're getting the user base which is getting hooked on to a lot of entertainment and virtual content. And slowly, as all the other things become together, all the pieces of the puzzle come together, India will be primed for this metaverse thing. Now, having being primed for the metaverse thing from technology and consumer angle is one side. From policy and regulation angle is going to be another
mm,
big
yeah,
challenge, because I think we will see things being out there that we have
yeah,
never encountered before. One example is a deep fake.
yeah,
You have your avatar talking to you. You really don't know whether this is Arvind Gupta talking to you or somebody else, or whether I'm saying what I'm saying is me or
yeah,
somebody else's voice. And to an average consumer, that's going to be very very dangerous.
yeah,
So I think it's going to be a whole new world. We have to be ready for it, from all angles.
yeah,
And are we there yet? We're just starting of the same in India. Like anything else, India is going to be an integral part of all digital movements and platforms going forward. You remember when a few companies said India is not important to them, they lost market cap by $1 billion in a day.
yeah,
Gone are those days. The same companies are operating back in India and
absolutely.
saying India is the most important market to us. So I think no, this is the good part. No story in the world is written now in the
Without,
digital
absolutely.
ecosystem without India being part of it. So
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I mean, you operate at the cusp of technology, policy, and enterprise, right? What are you most bullish about India? What's your vision for India? I mean, what in every morning you wake up, what excites you about what we are going through?
see, India's transformation journey has just started. You and me just said that we've lived through the COVID shock, pretty resilient COVID shocks. And I think what that has shown, that as a overall society, as a overall economy, we're pretty resilient to certain things. And I think the speed at which India has adapted over the last few years to many changes, grassroots level changes, policy level changes, demonetization, GST, with all its shocks and all its agility. I think we are, as a society, as a nation, are really yearning to leapfrog from it in our 75th years to the 100th year, when the next 25 years as the golden years of India. So innovation led, technology led, trade led, trust led society. That is what I see India not only solving a lot of challenges for itself, but for the next 6 billion in the world. The world looks at India with a different lens, geopolitically. So I think we are at an advantage that today, if we today can stamp a made in India product or made in India, um, electronic, non-electronic, any product, and it can be exported. Technology, people, skills. So I think we are at the starting of this innovation curve in India. It's even though we are talking about 100 plus unicorns, but I think that's just the start of it. The next measurement of a unicorn, apart from the valuation aspect, could also be the amount of people it's impacting. And we'll see Indian Indian technology, Indian products, not only impacting India but globally going forward. And that's going to be a very very in our foreseeable future going to be a very good very good scenario.
Transformation perspective, what we are seeing, Dheeraj, is that we are seeing aspirational India growing and aspiring to do things not only just startups, but just making their lives better, and that means getting more education, more skills, using the digital technologies available to them to have gain higher productivity of life, getting better deals in life, and having a lot of portability and mobility. And that is also, we are seeing the shifts in the labor forces and throughout the country. And the skilling programs are doing very, very well. And that shows the level of aspirational India. And with this whole transformation of India, as I said, whether it's trade, technology, textiles, manufacturing, um, I think, and the whole geopolitical impact of it is actually helping us transform as an overall society. And I mean, you talked about Uttar Pradesh having $1 trillion ambition. Every state has a very high ambition program, and if you, and that's where I always say we have to acknowledge Team India, that it is, headlines apart, that the country is working very well in synchronization to achieve this larger goals of $3 trillion, $5 trillion, the larger goals of the next 25 years. So the core of it is the demographic dividend that we have, but aided by the right visions, the right policies, the right ecosystem. India is, the brand India, the Team India is really unleashing the tiger in it. So I think it's
Amazing.
the next 25 years is of our lifetime will be very very growth oriented, and growth also, which is increasing the human quality of life
Yeah.
much higher. So
Yeah. And Arvind, my final question to all the young people listening to this podcast, right? What would your advice be? I mean, somebody starting up, somebody want to do something larger. What would your advice be to the younger people listening to us today?
see, I think, I mean, I still feel that, as I said, the India story is just starting out. And with the India story just starting out, there are opportunities everywhere. Today, limiting ourselves with a straight-jacketed approach may not be the best approach. You can think, you can do, you can fail, and that's acceptable. Fail from an idea, from a startup, from trying to do a different job. But the life, there is, every learning that will come will enable us to do a lot more. And the culture is been set up in India like this, the mindset is like this now. If you're trying, it's appreciable, and that is what has changed. And irrespective of the fact that 10 million people will always want the government job. So and those 10 million people who are aspiring to do a government job themselves are becoming very entrepreneurial. Let me tell you that they have become the entrepreneurs. When people are working inside the government also, they are thinking disruption, innovation, and that's these are words which are not just buzzwords any longer. They're actually becoming part
Yeah.
of the mindset, how I can do better. So my thoughts to the younger lot is that we are seeing the next 2 decades as India's decade, and
Wow.
to participate in that is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I think we should all work towards, in whatever way we can contribute the best, to become to participate in that, to benefit from it, and to contribute in it. And you will, these, as I said, this we are in the right moment at the right time.
Amazing, awesome. Thank you so much for this conversation. And Arvind, as a part of this format, right? We also reached a stage where we flip the mic. So I've been asking you so many questions. If there are any questions you want to ask me, we do that in this section before we end the show.
So my question, Dheeraj, is always, I mean, you talked about me being an industry person, but I think your journey is replicates the same. You come from the area of India, which is which is real India, right, Bharat, and you're here heading one of the biggest firms in the world. How do you see, if you had to make a few bets in few companies,
Yeah.
what are the few regrets that you have had? If you had a chance to invest, what did you not invest in? And what are the
Yeah.
investments that you would make going forward?
Yeah. So regrets have been, I mean, a few very consumer tech companies, right? I mean, say a Nika kind of a format, and nobody thought is going to take the world by its storm. Those have been the regrets. But honestly, if I have to invest, I would be investing more in education. I would be investing more in health. I mean, health is something which is top of my mind, and health not just for the top end, but health for middle India, health for bottom India, right? I feel we are reaching a stage where what's good for people, what's good for society, will also be very very good for business, right? And that confluence is what excites me for today's opportunities.
No, so you didn't name a few startups that you would like to invest in.
That list we can discuss offline.
Okay. And
Yeah,
again, you're asking me, you're drilling me on a lot of crypto things. Are
yeah.
you with full disclaimer? Are you a crypto investor?
I'm not, and I'm damn scared
And
because I don't understand
are
this.
you happy or not? Are you happy that you're
i'm
not? I mean,
I'm happy that I'm not, because what I don't understand I don't play. And
so
this
you
is
don't
something
suffer
I don't
you
understand fully.
you don't suffer from a FOMO that
Oh, not on this one.
not on this one.
Not
Very
on
good,
this one.
very good.
Also,
Because see,
also, also, strangely, it's played out too soon.
yeah, so see, this is one of those things where people who have invested at 5,000 level will come and say, "Oh, I'm still in the money," but people who have invested at 50 are saying it's only 24. It will come back. It will come back. So yeah, we have to. This is interesting. Yeah. So yeah, I hear you, and I think regrets are part of not investing are always part of life, but that's what we have to learn
Yeah.
and invest for the future. So.
Yes. Yeah.
Great, great, Dheeraj. And one last question, and I'll leave. I mean, if you were to pick a destination in India and convert
Yeah.
it into a tourism hub, which it is currently not, I'm assuming that. What
Yeah.
would you do that? Which destination would you pick, and what kind of a tourism would you
I
convert it
would,
into?
I would, I would pick up Nalanda in Bihar.
Very good.
Right. The seat of learning comes from my state. Uh, right. I mean, you see a bath and you see whatever outside. Right. I mean, this is the oldest seat of learning in the world.
That's
Right.
true.
And I've been there. It's absolutely amazing. There's no reason why it should not be on the global map.
And that I wish everybody can take 500 of those destinations in India and create great spots apart from the
Yeah.
current tourism circuits that we have. And that's another thing, that another T I didn't talk about is travel. India has so much
Yeah.
of travel potential that we have to leverage upon.
Yeah.
So great,
Yeah.
Dheeraj, nice having this chat, and
Yeah.
thank you for having me on your podcast.
Arvind, thank you so much for the time. It's a fantastic conversation. Before I leave you, if any of our people want to reach out to you, send you a tweet or a LinkedIn, what's the best way to reach out to you, Arvind?
Buzz in Delhi, that's the Twitter account I tweet on, and I'm fairly active. So if you tweet to me on at Buzz in Delhi, I'll definitely respond.
Superb. Thank you so much, Arvind. Thanks a lot.